All right, welcome. Today, we're diving into the work of a poet whose words were so much more than just beautiful. They were a weapon. We're talking about the incredible power of Elizabeth Barrett Browning. So let me ask you something. How can a poem become a protest? We usually think of poetry as this quiet, personal thing. But Elizabeth Barrett Browning, she didn't just write poems, she literally forged them into tools for social change. And today, we're going to break down exactly how she did it. Okay, to really get a handle on her power, you've got to picture her world. We're talking about the Victorian era. It was this wild time of clashing forces. You've got smoky factories booming, and right alongside that, this explosion of literary genius. And she was right in the thick of it, alongside huge names like her future husband, Robert Browning, and the artist-poet Dante Gabriel Rossetti. And right at the heart of this whole revolution, that's where you find her. Look, she wasn't just another voice in the chorus. She was a genuine literary superstar, and she used her passionate poetry to fearlessly tackle the biggest social issues of her day, everything from women's rights to child labor.
Now, we're going to start with the work she is most famous for. But I want you to forget everything you think you know about old, stuffy love poems. This collection? It's basically a raw, deeply personal diary of her courtship with Robert Browning, all captured in 44 sonnets that reveal every single vulnerable moment.
And what's so fascinating is how she told this story. She took the Petrarchan sonnet, this really rigid, super traditional, centuries-old poetic form, and she just completely bent it to her will. She broke its rules to fit her raw, modern, emotional story. And in doing that, she basically set a whole new standard for what love poetry could be. And this is really what makes the collection feel so timeless, right? You feel her vulnerability at the start, her hesitation, but then you get to witness the transformative power of love. She uses all this rich symbolism, light and darkness, nature, not just to explore her feelings, but also to subtly push back against the super strict expectations for women at the time. But here's the thing. Her love poetry, that was only one side of her genius. When she pointed her pen at the injustices happening in the world, it became an absolute weapon. She was never, ever afraid to get political. Which brings us to one of her most potent works of social critique, The Cry of the Children. And this poem, wow. This wasn't some abstract piece of art. It was a furious, direct response to a massive moral catastrophe of the industrial age. So you have to understand, at this time, inside factories and deep in the mines, kids were being exploited in just horrific conditions. And Barrett Browning absolutely refused to let this stay hidden. She used her massive platform to drag this awful reality right out into the light, writing a poem that was a direct, emotional gut punch, a plea for justice. So what was her most powerful tool here? Simple. She gives the children a voice. That haunting line, "How long?" it just echoes through the entire poem. And it's not just a line, right? It's a lament, it's an accusation, and it's a desperate plea for relief, all designed to shake the conscience of Victorian society to its core. Now, her advocacy didn't stop with child labor, not even close. With Aurora Leigh, she published something truly groundbreaking, a full-length novel written entirely in verse. Think about that. This ambitious epic tackled the very definition of what a woman could be, focusing on her fight for artistic freedom and her own autonomy. So the story follows this young woman, Aurora, who completely rejects the life she's supposed to want, marriage, domestic life, and instead fights for her true ambition, to become a poet. With this one character, Barrett Browning basically created a blueprint for modern feminist literature, a woman who unapologetically demands a public career and her own artistic integrity. And the contrast here could not be more stark. On one side, you've got this suffocating little box of Victorian expectations for women. Focus on domestic life, be quiet, be subservient. And then on the other side, you have Aurora's absolutely radical ambition for a public career and a voice of her own. This poem wasn't just telling a story. It was a direct challenge to the entire system. So when you put all of these pieces together, the passionate lover, the fierce activist, the feminist visionary, what do you get? What is her ultimate legacy? Well, her impact is just undeniable. She seamlessly blended the personal with the political, proving that poetry could absolutely be a tool for revolution. She advocated for social justice, for women's rights, and child labor reform. She shattered old poetic forms, established a powerful female voice in a world dominated by men, and went on to inspire generations of feminist writers. It's an incredible list. And ultimately, this was her genius, right here. Her ability to blend her own personal experience with these huge, broader societal themes. It's why her work continues to resonate so strongly with readers, making it both timeless and, frankly, still incredibly relevant.
And that really leaves us with one final thought. You think about a poet with her kind of fire, her keen sense of justice. If she were alive and writing today, what injustices do you think her poetry would confront? Something to think about. Thanks for joining us.